Colin Kaepernick, of course, started this protest as the national anthem is being played, and it has caught on. And so now a lot of folks are doing it. I'm going to tell you about one guy in particular in a second, Brandon Marshall, and how effective it's been. Really, because people just say, this is all to do about nothing. This hasn't been effective. They're just, crying over it. No. I'll tell you about it. But first, let me give you a sense of how much it has spread. So far, the protests have spread to at least 48 NFL players, 9 NBA teams, 14 WNBA players, 1 gold medal swimmer, 1 pro women's soccer player, 52 high schools, 39 colleges, 1 middle school, and 2 youth football teams in 35 states across the United States, along with Brazil, Canada, and England, and a partridge in a pear tree. So yes, it has spread. So number one, in and of itself, that is drawing a lot of attention to the issues of police abuse and brutality and the wrong training that police are getting. That is wonderful. That is already in some ways mission accomplished, at least in terms of letting more Americans realize, hey, this is what African Americans go through. You might not go through it, but they do. Now, I want to talk to you about Brandon Marshall in particular. He is one of the first people to join the protests, and when at the time Colin Kaepernick was alone and Brandon Marshall took a knee and said, no, I'm going to join him. He's from the Denver Broncos. He's from a different team. Now, Brandon Marshall is a very successful player, but not as well known as Colin Kaepernick or some of the other stars on offense. He's a defensive player. But he did have a couple of endorsement deals. Boom, he lost them. Immediately, they said, we don't want to be associated with this guy, and it had a financial impact on him. But he said, I'm going to keep on doing it because no matter what, my point is that we have to fix the system. It's not about anything personal. We just got to get better training, as we've been saying on the Young Turks all along. So he also went on to put more money where his mouth is. As they explain in Think Progress, most of the critics of the protests see them only as symbolic and distracting, but Marshall has been determined from the outset to make sure he did much more than take a knee. He has donated $300 for each tackle he makes this season to organizations in the Denver community that address racial inequality and plans to continue those donations. So already that's success number 2. You might think it's a small thing, but he's got a lot of tackles. He's a really good player. So that's a good amount of money going to a charity that works on this particular issue. Wonderful, but it's about to get better. He has also met with Denver police multiple times in recent months, particularly Chief Robert White. White was in charge of revamping the department's use of force policy. He told the Denver Post that the rewritten policy encourages officers to use as little force as necessary and provides specific situational guidelines for them to follow. But this is exactly what they were doing it for, so that they could have a conversation with the police across this country and say, hey, you know what? I think we can make this training and this system better, that we can tweak it. This isn't because we hate you guys. It's so that we can make sure that people who shouldn't be shot don't get shot. That's not that much to ask for. So, of course, across the country, we've had shootings where cops shoot 12-year-olds in 2 seconds flat. Oops, they had a toy gun. Another shooting in 2 seconds in a Walmart. Oops, he had grabbed the guy who was a grown-up, had grabbed a toy gun from the Walmart. He was walking around with it like any shopper would if they were going to buy it. But they didn't find out because they shot him in 2 seconds flat. Unarmed people are being shot across the country and disproportionately African-American. And it turns out, great credit to the Denver police, unlike the Cleveland police and others, who said, hey, you know what? It's a good point. Let's look at this and let's see how we can fix it together. Wonderful. That's the whole point. And Robert White, the Denver Police Department chief, said, I'm of the opinion it's just not good enough for officers to take legal actions, but they also need to make sure those actions are absolutely necessary. That's where we are going. Look, I can't thank the Brandon Marshalls of this world enough, and the Colin Kaepernick who started it in the first place. And the whole point was to get action to fix the system. And that's what they've begun to do in Denver. So for all the people who said, oh, it's all about nothing, it's all about, playing the victim card, or all the other absurd things that you guys said, it was never true. It was actually about getting action to fix the system, and they did. People who don't want the system fixed always tell you, hey, whatever you do, don't do anything. Don't protest, don't go out in the streets, don't get rowdy, don't even sit down. Don't do the calmest protest there is, because they don't want the system to be fixed. But you've got to know something. You've got power. And if you use that power through activism, you can actually have effects. And you can begin to fix the system, as Brandon Marshall and Colin Kaepernick did in this case. Finally, Brandon Marshall put out something on social media. It's a quote from President Obama that represents the way he thinks about things. The quote is, "Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek." Now, I couldn't agree more with that. There's so much more activism left to do on this issue and many others. Let's begin that fight together, because you know what? It works, and that's how we get to a better way of living right here in America. That's how we make America a more perfect union. You want the same old mainstream media stuff?
Hell no!
I hear you, brother. That's why we got a whole new show on the Young Turks called Aggressive Progressive. Members get the whole show. Do it now. tytnetwork.com/join.